Call this meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Wagner.
Here.
Commissioner Idika is not able to attend today. Commissioner Linder.
Here.
Commissioner Satanovich.
Here.
And Commissioner Carmichael has also let us know he is not able to attend today. Vice Chair Johnson.
Here.
And Chair Crushauer.
Here. All right. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as it is?
I'll move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Have a second.
I'll second.
All right. Everybody in favor of adopting the agenda as presented?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Business from the public. This is an opportunity for anyone to give a brief presentation about any land use planning issue or county concern that is not on the agenda. I don't see anybody in Zoom land and nobody here. Okay. Public hearings. Move on to our first line item, ordinance 2605. This is a legislative hearing regarding ordinance 26-05, adopting amendments to Article 1, introductory provisions, and Article 2, procedures for land use applications of the Clatsop County Land and Water Development and Use Code to establish an administrative variance process and procedures for amending approved permits and concerns of approval. Does any commissioner have a conflict of interest to report on this ordinance? Hearing none. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the commission to hear this matter at this time? Hearing none. Staff report. Will the staff please make their report?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Chair and Commission members. For the record, Gail Henriksen, Community Development Director. The ordinance that's before you today is the same as the ordinance that we brought before you last month for discussion and review. And then we also took it to the Board of Commissioners for a work session on January 28th. They were very supportive of the ordinance. They did not have any additions or corrections or deletions that they recommended. And so if it's adopted and if you choose to recommend that the board adopt this ordinance, what it would do is just create a couple of additional tools and simpler processes that people could use as they work through their land development projects. And this will result in savings of staff time, savings of money for customers, and savings of time for customers as well. So, as I said, nothing has changed since last month, so I'm really here today to answer any questions you might have about the ordinance. We do have a recommended motion, which is on page 13 of your agenda. And again, I'm just here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions of staff?
I have some questions. Some of these other jurisdictions that they have more leeway and they can have a larger percentage of changes that they allow. Can that be done at a staff level, or does that need to be done at a higher level?
So, for example, could you point out an example, please?
Well, I think, let me find that page. Where was that 2% at?
I have the same questions, and we were discussing it. I have it written down right here. Like, do you mind?
No, it's page 5.
Yeah.
Where Clatsop County proposes 2%, and these other counties like Hood River County has 10%, City of Carlton 20%, City of La Pine 10%, Ontario 15%. The maximum request size is what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You're proposing 2%. Other jurisdictions go much higher than that.
Right.
Is there
So first of all, just to make sure that we are all starting from the same page, these lot size variances can only apply in our rural communities, so, Napa, Swenson, Miles Crossing.
Okay.
We cannot do it on rural residential land. That 2-acre minimum is set by state statute, and so we cannot waive that. So within our rural communities, our lot sizes are fairly small, some as small as 5,000 square feet, some are less if it's like a cottage cluster development or things like that. So 2% seem to be a more reasonable variance to do at a staff level. If the Planning Commission would like to increase that, then we would need to amend the ordinance that's before you today, and you could make that recommendation to the board, and then we can update it before we take it to the board in February, at the end of this month in March.
Are there other areas where, I guess my preference is to give, where I'm coming from is to give staff more leeway and more flexibility without having to go to a higher body.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these are higher, and it may not be quite an apples to apples comparison with Clatsop County, because everybody has different rules for lot sizes and everything, depending on where they're at. But it seems like some of what Clatsop County has proposed is fairly moderate or less than some of the other comparisons that we have kind of across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Do you or the staff see any issues with expanding that to allow for staff to have more flexibility, or how did you come to that, to these percentages? I mean, I know they're arbitrary. They're kind of like, well, we just have to pick something that we think is a good idea and we think that will work well for our county. And it may not compare to Hood River or wherever else we may be looking at, but do you feel this is a good balance, or would you be comfortable with expanding them more?
I think generally I would be pleased and appreciative if we had more flexibility. I do also look at the reality that there are certain areas and communities within the county where even a 2% at the staff level will be very difficult for them to swallow. And so I think when we put the numbers together, that's why we tended more towards the conservative side. But there's really no reason why the Planning Commission couldn't recommend a higher percentage.
I think that would, in my view, we should look at a higher percentage on some of these items. I don't necessarily have a proposal on what they should be, but I think that that's something we should look at or discuss, and would give staff more flexibility on some of these things. I think that benefits the public to do that. So saves staff time, saves money. So that was my question.
I agree with Commissioner Johnson. I read this pretty thoroughly. I went through this whole thing pretty well, and comparing the 6 or 7 other jurisdictions that we've looked into and questioned what theirs are, I think that ours is very low, and it goes across all of these. I mean, like a 5,000 square foot minimum lot, you're talking about 100 square foot difference, which is very, very little in an actual real world. I mean, speaking from experience, we build on 5,000 square foot lots and sometimes smaller if they're in the cities, and there's plenty of, I know we have septic systems to worry about as well, but if they fit and if they make sense, we need more housing, we need more ability to build. I think that, and I have complete faith in the planning department being able to look at these things in a bigger capacity for making a decision. I mean, I've been through that process. You guys do a good job. You look at everything, and if it fits, it fits, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And then there's an option after that to go to an appeal or something like that. I would like to make some recommendations on some of these. Am I allowed to do that as the chair?
I believe so, yeah.
I'm learning the processes too. Can I go through and make recommendations to each one, or do we need to do one, talk about it, another one, talk about it, another one, talk about it?
Completely at your discretion.
Okay. Like on lot size variances, the first one that you guys went through, I think, and we'll talk about it amongst commissioners, but I think a 10 to 20% variance is completely acceptable for the planning department to look at those things. You're not talking about a lot of property at 2%. I mean, it's literally 100 square feet. And looking at the other municipalities, they're between 10 and 20%. Ontario went to 50. Thornton's at 20%. I know they have a lot less or a lot smaller lots, but they are also on sewer, so I understand that. But on the lot size variances, I would made a recommendation of 10 to 20 to discuss with the planning commission. Let's go one at a time. Does any other commissioners have any concerns or would like to discuss the 10 or 20%? And again, this doesn't mean that it's going to be approved at this. It just means that the staff can take these applications. If there's a small, even 10% of anything is pretty small, and handle it in-house and not cost the applicant an extra $1,500 to go through the process, because I believe it's $2,000 for the other, and it's $500 for this. Does any other commissioners have any, and I'm just going to go through them one at a time because it's easier to discuss them all. Does any other commissioners have any questions or concerns with allowing the planning department staff to handle up to a 10 or 20% variance?
I don't. I think much of this could be done by matching what the city of Warrenton does, which is our closest jurisdiction. In some cases, there's none specified with what the city of Warrenton does, and we could clarify that as we go through this if we don't want to match what the city of Warrenton does.
What does that mean? Like Douglas County, it says NA. Do they not have the smaller variance like detailed out of what they can do, or did they just kind of leave it out of their?
Yeah, so they don't allow administrative variances for lot sizes. There is a formal variance process like we would have on certain properties that aren't rural residential or resource zone.
Thank you.
So with a variance process, say that it was allowed to go up to 20% in an over-the-counter type variance. Does that mean variances aren't always approved, or would that mean that they're automatically approved if they're allowed? But you're supposed to look at the big picture as staff and whether or not it makes sense.
Yeah, they would still have to meet certain criteria and show that there's a need for it that's tied to the land. You can't just come in and say, I just want my lot to be 20% smaller, because that's what I want. So there's still criteria that you're going to look at to make sure that this really is needed.
And that criteria is the same whether it's 5%, 10%, 20%, or if they go to the full variance, correct?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit easier on the administrative variance. I'd have to dig out the criteria again, but it's basically the same.
Well, maybe as we're continuing on, I think I can help you with this and just go through these one by one.
Yeah.
And then just maybe we can discuss them on an individual basis really quickly, and if we have consensus on them, then we could do a amended motion when we get to the end, or a recommendation with amendments. Yeah. And
does anybody online have anything?
Yeah, I think
this?
this is Commissioner Satanovich. I think it's what you guys are discussing is absolutely valid, and I liked what Commissioner Johnson said about maybe aligning a little bit with City of Warrenton. That piques my interest because City of Warrenton really is probably in my view, I mean, growing up in Astoria and being around, probably the most similar thing to these the communities that we're talking about. I don't know, Jeffers Gardens, not so, I mean, in the sense of the land, but yeah, I don't have heartburn with that at all. And I feel like, we've already said it, but we trust, the department, the people that work there to make those decisions. So yeah, going forward, I think this is a good idea. That's just my 2 cents for now.
Thank you. Commissioner Linder, do you have anything to add?
I don't think I have anything to add. I definitely think that 2% is too low. As Commissioner Johnson said, we're sort of just picking an arbitrary number, but I think that the criteria are unchanged. It's basically just the difference of the process and making it easier for development to move forward, which I think is important. So whether it's 10 or 20%, and the process is that much more straightforward and less expensive for the taxpayer, I'm definitely in support of that.
Thank you.
I'm generally in support of it. I think you had a brief conversation there. I'm not in your industry, so in my mind, if you can allow it a variance and I'm a landowner, if someone applies, how does it get reviewed and the judgment in it? And there has to be reasonable accommodations to say yes to it. Does it just get approved because it's in the variance?
Right. So on page 25 of your staff report, that's where we laid out the criteria for an administrative variance at the bottom of that page, number 3. And it lays out the criteria that you would have to show in order for the administrative variance to be met. So you'd have to be, first of all, within the parameters, whether it's 10%, 20%, you'd have to be within that numerical boundary. And then based on the criteria, and just like a regular variance, staff would still put together a staff report and write findings to verify why we are either approving or denying the variance.
Yeah. And then there's a process that they can appeal that.
Yeah, and a director's decision gets appealed up to the hearings officer, and then from there it would go up to the Board of Commissioners.
I would like to see the lot size variances. I mean, we're going to go through these one at a time at 20%. Does anybody else have a problem with recommending this go from 2% to 20% on lot variances, similar to what Warrenton and the City of Carlton has done?
I would support matching Warrenton, going to 20% on table 2, on page 5. I'm good.
Okay.
We won't, I guess, maybe we should just confirm that we have consensus on that, or we make an amendment before, when we get to the end, when we have make a motion on that, so staff can track this as we're going through these and making changes. We'll try to be clear about the amendments that we're proposing. And keeping in mind, this also goes to the Board of Commissioners for their final approval. This is not the end. This is a recommendation for approval. The final decision rests with the board. So there's been a proposal on table 2 on page 5 to go from 2% to 20% to match the City of Warrenton. Does everybody agree on that? Or is everybody in agreement on that, or any other debate? I agree.
Yeah, I'm on board.
I agree.
Okay.
Lot size variances. At the end of this, it says, staff recommendation, do not allow administrative lot width variances for parcels that have a minimum width requirement of 50 feet. For parcels with a minimum width requirement greater than 60 feet, allow a maximum of 10% reduction in required lot width through the administrative variance process. I had a question on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my personal house, the front of my house is probably 35 to 40 feet wide, but I have almost 2 acres. Would that immediately make me a non-buildable lot? It's not a pie shape, but the entrance is a pie shape. it comes down to a cul-de-sac, and I'm under that 50 feet wide. But then I have almost 2 acres where my house is obviously, it's obviously grandfathered in from 40 years ago. But would that make my lot, if I were to purchase that and want to build a home there, would that make me unbuildable?
Not necessarily, because you would just have to meet the regular setback requirements for the zone that you're in. So you couldn't have a variance to make your lot narrower, assuming that your lot was legally platted.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, so then you're just grandfathered in if the rules have changed and now a bigger lot width is required. So you would just be grandfathered in.
I guess I'm trying to, okay, if somebody buys a bigger piece of property in the county and they want to put a cul-de-sac in, and say they've got 2 acres on every lot, but where it comes down to an road for fire access, for road access, for everything else, if the front of the lot would then be proposed to be smaller, would that have to go through a full variance with or how does that process work? Because it makes sense to you have plenty of property, you have plenty of lot size for the homes, but just the road frontage, which is what we would consider the front of the property, is smaller than 50 feet. How does that work?
So I'd have to go back and read our definition about how we measure the lot width. There are different ways that you can do it. You can measure it at the front yard setback. You can measure it at the front property line. Sometimes when we have odd-shaped lots, we'll do an average of the lot width. But if you were coming in with a new, 10-acre piece of land and you wanted to create 5 2-acre parcels, then you would need to meet the rules or you'd have to apply for a variance.
And that would be the full variance at the $2,000.
Right.
What does planned development, is there a number of parcels that created a planned development, or if you're just going to put 3 in or 4 in, what's the minimum or the maximum you can do without having a full planned development?
Yeah, so a planned development is beyond the scope of what we will probably ever see here, which is, more of your destination resort or a full, retail, shopping, housing development. So a partition is up to 3 parcels per year, and then subdivision would be more than that, 4 or more.
Okay.
Up to 30.
I would like to see that the staff could make at least some sort of a judgment on something like that. If you had, 10% is a foot, 20% is 2 feet. But they're not allowing, this recommends do not allow anything without a full variance, correct?
Correct. And the reason for that, again, goes back to where we have some of these 5,000 square foot minimum lot requirements and just understanding the concerns that have been raised by certain areas about development patterns. So just trying to keep that in mind.
In the other jurisdictions that we looked, it doesn't have a finding on there.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that they don't allow it? None of them allow it?
Yeah, so some jurisdictions have standards that they've applied the administrative variance process to. Others have chosen just to make it go through a regular full variance. So the ones that say NA or non-specified means that they haven't addressed it in their code as an administrative variance, that it would automatically go into the full variance procedure.
Non-specified.
So on page 6, under number 4 there,
Mm-hmm.
I would just propose a maximum of 10% reduction instead of on everything. Just allow give staff the ability to go up to 10% reduction on required lot width through the administrative variance process, and not limit it to anything. You still look at the whole picture, but I don't think that's on a lot that small, that's not very many feet. Actually, quite.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot, but it's not much. Doesn't give you a lot of leeway before you'd be pushed into a full variance process anyway. So if someone wanted to go beyond that, they'd be looking at another type of variance
Mm-hmm.
anyway. So I would go I would recommend that we go up to 10% on everything, on the lot width. And then, it's kind of confusing because you have the lot size variance here, and then underneath that, you have the staff recommendation of allow the maximum of 10% reduction, and then the next table, you have another recommendation of 10% for lots for a minimum lot width greater than 50 feet. So we're kind of talking about two different things. So the ones under 50 feet, I'd say we go to 10%, and then below that, I'd like to see that one to go to 20%, which is the over 50 feet on table 3. So table 2 would be 10%, and table 3 would be 20%. And if we don't see what,
Table 2 is the lot size, so the
That's for the-
overall acreage, and the consensus was to put that at 20%.
where's it say
I
that?
don't see that either. Maybe I'm reading it wrong.
So table 2 begins on page 5.
Oh, it's just continued.
Yeah, it's just continued.
Oh, that's the second part of it.
We'd
I
already-
got it.
Yeah, we discussed
Yeah,
that one.
okay, so
we're
that's
gonna
part
go
of, that's part of the other
to 20%
table.
on
Got it.
that one.
All right, I'm confused on that. So we're talking about,
So table 3 says 10% for lots with a minimum greater than 50%, not allowed for lots with a minimum requirement. 10% with lots minimum lot width greater than 50, oh, okay.
Yeah, so if your minimum,
I think we just, that first is what he's trying to say is we'd be 20% with a minimum lot width greater than 50%, and then 10% instead of not allowed for lots with a minimum required lot width of 50%,
50 feet.
or 50 feet, sorry.
Does that make sense, or would we be better off just clarifying and just going with something like 20% across the board?
probably easier if you have one standard, but either way will work.
I would just propose we go 20% across the board on that. Just to
Exactly.
clean it up, and, that doesn't mean it's gonna happen. We're still talking about a very small footage in width. It just,
Talking about 2 feet, yeah, a 50-foot lot. I think, I agree, that's the same notes that I made, was the 20% across the board.
okay, I would propose 20% on, table 3 then, on page 6. Does everybody agree with 20%?
I agree with that.
You're saying 2 feet.
Or
But-
table,
10% of 50 to me is 5 feet. 20% would be 10 feet. Yeah.
so we're,
So you'd be allowed 40-foot wide.
45.
I want to clarify.
And that would have to make sense through the application process. You'd have to prove a need for it.
Yeah.
Lot shape, it doesn't mean that it's gonna be approved. Gives them more authority, more leeway to make that judgment.
A reasonable
If it's a
accommodation
reasonable
for the
request.
recommendation, then I'm good.
Then, lot width, the Clatsop County's, proposed 20% on the lot depth variance on page 7, table 4.
Yep.
And, probably okay with that. Warrenton doesn't have anything specified on their depth, but it does give the Clatsop County a lot more flexibility, or some more flexibility at the staff level. So I would propose we stick with the 20%,
I agree.
depth variance. Table 5, lot coverage, City of Warrenton's at 20%, Clatsop County proposed 5%. I would propose we match the City of Warrenton at 20%.
I'm good.
Everybody agree with that?
agreed.
I agree.
Okay. So far, I think we're at 20% on everything. Page 8, building height variance, City of Warrenton has 20%, Clatsop County proposed 6 inches. And I would suggest that we match the City of Warrenton at 20%. And this would be,
Does this affect oceanfront properties?
They are different.
Yeah, we would not recommend administrative variances for oceanfront properties.
And I would agree with that.
Yeah, those end up being lawsuits and everything else, and I think that the full variance is acceptable on that one, because you wanna make sure that everything is above board on that, and everybody gets to look at it.
Okay, so we would change that to,
And that was in there, right? Correct?
I know we talked about it.
I did see it in there, but it's not, I would rather, should we put it in the proposed that oceanfront properties, just to clear up the language, that it's not 20% across the board, it's oceanfront properties are not included in this administrative, process?
Yes,
Okay,
I made a note of that too.
okay.
it does have, it says, building heights along the coast have long been restricted to 18 feet for oceanfront lots and 26 feet for non-oceanfront lots. This is primarily to protect views, so. And no building height variance have been approved since that time, 2017. So it is kind of noted in there, but,
Gonna be 20% excluding oceanfront properties.
yes, I would. Yep. And let's exclude oceanfront properties,
From the administrative process.
in the administrative process.
I'm good with that.
Everybody agree with that? Okay.
Yeah,
Table
yeah,
7.
that works. I'm just thinking through it. I'm trying to think of other issues that might come, but I think we're fine. I think it's fine.
Table 7, setback variances. Again, I think we should be 20% across the board, instead of, just clean it up, instead of adjacent to resources at 10%, or resource zones and all other setbacks 20%. I think that we should just be 20% across the board on this one as well. And that's at or below all the other jurisdictions except for the city of McMinnville. Everybody else is at, not everybody else, are at 25, 20, 25, 10, 25, and then Warrenton is not.
So Douglas County has a setback no less than 5 feet. I think that would be something that's probably appropriate to add in a county, that you shouldn't be closer than 5 feet to a property line with. Absolutely. With something, so I would be okay
Are
with.
we 10 feet now?
Some zones are 10, some are 5.
I would just say that we can't go less than 5 feet.
Yeah, because at that point, you're gonna start tripping increased building code requirements if you've got your buildings too closely together.
So that, we could include that part where that Douglas County has in there, no setback less than 5. But go to 20% otherwise. Does everybody agree with that?
Yeah, I agree.
Can I get some clarification? We had recommended no administrative variances when the setback is 5 feet or less already. We did not recommend administrative variances if you need to reduce a required riparian buffer, or if you're adjacent to a Goal 16 shoreline. Those are things that, well, Goal 16 shoreland obviously comes from our comp plan, which is the areas adjacent to the estuaries and along the coast, the coastal lakes. So we would not, staff would not recommend that those be handled through administrative variances.
If we're at 20% across the board on this question, and if someone tries to get a closer setback to one of those through the administration process, it would probably get denied, and then they'd have to go to another one, the full variance anyway.
Well, then it would be appealed to the hearing processor.
If they go through this process and it's denied, and then they go through the appeal, is that another $2,000?
The initial appeal is $250. That's set by state statute.
Okay.
And then if they chose to appeal to the Board of Commissioners, then if the board agreed to hear the appeal, then I think it's like 1,600, I can't remember. We haven't done one in a while.
So they'd be about the same cost out of pocket, maybe a little bit more, but it would give the,
Yeah, I'd be okay with just leaving it the way that the staff proposed and just say, well, they can't. There's no administrative variance allowed for these types of, for a riparian vegetation buffer that would be required, or a Goal 16 shoreland overlay. I think that's kind of rare. I mean, how often do you see that?
We never have, but I think if you put it in the code,
Okay.
or at least during my time here, we haven't.
Yeah, I
seen
don't
it.
recall ever seeing anything like that, so I'd be okay with just leaving that as it is and just say, if you want a variance from that, you're gonna have to go through a different process. So, leaving that recommendation in there and just, but going to 20%, otherwise.
and that's what you've recommended.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to clarify, the recommendation is 20% in all setbacks, and no administrative variances are allowed for side yard setbacks when the required setback is 5 feet or less. And just keeping that verbiage.
Keeping that, this is just following, this would be the staff recommendation on this one.
I'm good.
Everybody consensus on that, to go with the staff recommendation on table 7?
Yes.
Okay. Table 8, this says the recommendation is to not allow administrative variance for parking requirements, and I think it'd be nice for the staff to have some flexibility in that, and I would propose we go 20% on that as well, matching some of the other ones listed. City of Warrenton doesn't have anything listed. Ontario is at 25%. Carleton's at 20%. I think allow staff to go up to 20% on something like that would be appropriate. Anybody have any issue with that?
I don't recall, Director Hendrickson, what the significant changes that were made. I know we just went through all that stuff.
Yeah, this was probably a couple years ago now. It may have been January of '24, perhaps, maybe even a year earlier. We basically went through and revised all the parking standards. They were very much out of line with reality, and so we used the, I can't think of the name, the ITE parking manual, but to reduce the parking requirements, basically. And then we did more parking reductions as part of the housing amendments, specifically looking at residential types of uses.
Can you elaborate on your recommendation of no change here?
Simply because we had gone through this exercise fairly recently, and we believe our parking standards are pretty right-sized, but, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we did look at it, but this is just another tool that like we've discussed, it doesn't necessarily mean that a variance is gonna be approved. There has to be a valid need, shown for this process as well. So I think it just gives the staff a little bit more flexibility away from what our adopted development code says. So gives the staff some room to take a look at a variance and whether the need exists or whether it's appropriate. And I'd be comfortable with giving them some flexibility. So I'd propose going up to 20% on parking standards. Just to try, I'd like to see it be new across the board, like, well, we can go up to 20% on just, across the board. That's the flexibility level. That if you meet the requirements, just for ease of staff knows and the applicant knows, and everybody knows that that's what's available, possible in the right circumstances. So anybody have, how does everybody feel about 20% on parking standards? And I'm aware, I believe parking is important. I think it's something that should be looked at. I don't think that we want to do away with parking standards completely. Just in some cases that they should be looked at, and the staff should be able to look at that, make a determination. In the county, because lots are generally bigger, do we ever run into parking situations? I mean, maybe in some of the commercial zones, but I mean, you guys get a lot of applications that don't meet the parking requirements, or that have to go through a variance, that
So then after that, we did reduce the parking requirements for all the commercial and industrial uses and residential uses. So we haven't seen any parking variances come in except for one out in Fishhawk Lake, and that was due to the fact that the property was very steep. It had like a 60% grade, and they couldn't physically put a parking platform on there.
Gotcha.
So
I'm okay with the 20%. Do you see a problem with that? Allowing you guys to have that administrative judgment?
I'm trying to think, but I can't think of a reason why it would be a bad idea. So no.
I'm liking the 20% consistency.
Okay.
I do too. In general, I think that 20%, having a number that makes it easier for citizens, I mean, I know it doesn't clean up everything, but all these little things do add up to making things easier for both applicants and then for staff, I think, to have that little bit of wiggle room if they deem it necessary.
I agree. Okay, 20%. Fence wall and height variances. I had a question about this. I mean, obviously, we do have elk in our community, and people want to put 8-foot fencing around their properties. You have a property out in the county, and you want to put an 8-foot elk barrier around your property. That means that you have to be within, or 5 feet inside of your property, or you just can't do it?
No, you can do it. You would have to meet the setbacks if your fence was taller than 6 feet. So you would just go with the regular building setbacks if you had a taller fence. Don't know why that is, but that's the way it has been. Yeah, and the only place we wouldn't allow it would be in that clear vision area. So you don't want to be blocking an entrance coming out of a driveway with an 8-foot fence so you can't see what's coming down the road. But other than that, maybe there's not a reason to limit fence height to 6 feet.
Do we have a variance in our code? I know most of the cities, everyone that I've dealt with, within so many feet of the front of the property, it has to step down for vision, or be set back so far. You can't put a 6-foot fence right on your property line in Seaside or Gearhart or anywhere. So especially if it's on a corner, there's a lot more roads and intersections there. But we don't have anything like that.
No, you can put your 6-foot fence right on your front property line, as long as you're...
I mean, if we stick with the 20%, I mean, that gives you, what, a 7.5-foot fence if you want to do, I mean, that they could approve. I don't see an issue with allowing the administrative process to allow up to 20% if it can prove the need, the necessity, like similar properties or any of the requirements moving forward. I mean, it allows right now it's recommending to allow up to 6 inches for decorative, which would be like post tops, caps, gates.
I'd just be okay with staff looking at it. I think that through an administrative process, that I'd just stick with the 20% to match the city of Warrenton and match the rest of it. What we're doing here, instead of going with inches or some other method. Doesn't mean it's approved. It just means that the staff has the tool in their toolbox to make that adjustment without going through a more extensive process. I would recommend 20% to match Warrenton on the fence. Anybody have any issues with that or questions or?
In your recommendation, it's as a guy who builds a lot of fence, so this doesn't allow for the fence to go up 6 inches. It just allows for like every 8 feet, just like a post cap, correct? Okay.
I'm in favor of the
I know that
20%.
becomes an issue. I've seen it several times where it becomes an issue where people are cutting their fences off Perfect. The administrative variance fees. I had no issue with this. I was curious, I mean, and I know it's gonna vary from application to application, how many hours goes into it, so that's probably not a realistic question, but it's probably a minimum of 4 to 6 hours to look at something like this, and then it can get a lot more in-depth. Yeah.
Yeah, there would also be mailing costs because we would still be required to do the public notice.
Out of curiosity, how much time would this cut out? So it's still an administrative process, you still have to do the mailings and all that. Instead of besides the fees, how much time does it help the consumer?
So it shaves down the time because first of all, we don't have to run a published ad a certain number of days before the hearing. We don't have to schedule the hearing with the hearings officer, then hold the hearing with the hearings officer. The appeal period at the end would still be the same. The public notification would still be the same amount of time, but you could probably, depending on how long it takes to schedule the hearings officer and the posting of the property and the published ad, you can probably save a good month, I would think. That's realistic.
That's great. Does anybody else have any?
I don't have any issues with the fees. I would support what staff has proposed, for the fees. So the next part of it you have, it's kind of in your tables behind your proposed motion here. Is this all part of our recommendation then as well, the strike-through part of it and?
Yeah, the staff will need to update that to reflect your proposed amendments.
Okay.
So we'll update all that, but yeah, that's,
So, would that mean that this would come back to us, or would you just could you bring it to the board after that?
if you would prefer to have it come back one more time, we can schedule it for March. Otherwise, we can move it forward with your recommendations for the amendments and then make those.
I don't think that we need to come back to us. I just had a couple questions on some of the things that you had in here. Where some of these are director decisions, but the appeal process goes right to a hearings officer. And looks, from my recollection, and I know things got changed, the planning commission was involved in some of these appeal processes, or they were planning commission decisions, and we kind of got away from that. But I believe we spoke before about the role of the hearings officer. Is that's gonna be changing and at some point?
Yeah, so right now we have a 3-year contract with our current hearings officer, and what I anticipate, although I don't predict the future, but when that contract comes up for renewal, I suspect that we would work with the planning commission to revise your bylaws and bring some of these appeals to the planning commission instead of going to the hearings officer. So.
Okay, so for now, it'd be director decision on like a administrative variance goes to the director, and the appeal process would go to a hearings officer. But at some point, that could change to the appeal process is then planning commission. And it's anything that you want can be appealed further to the board of commissioners.
Right.
Okay, so as of now, it would just stay as a hearings officer appeal process. You have a contract in place with a hearings officer, which would all remain the same.
Yeah.
Understood.
On that same table that Commissioner Johnson's talking about, I had a question. So on page 21, it says the variance is a type 3, goes to a hearings officer.
Correct.
So that's if it doesn't meet the criteria of what we're talking about today.
Exactly.
Okay, so then under it, it says variance administrative type 2,
That's what we're talking about.
okay.
And if you appeal that on a type 3 variance, hearings officer makes a decision and the applicant is in disagreement with that, they appeal directly to the board of commissioners on that, not to the planning commission. It goes straight to the board. On a type 3 variance. What would an example of a type 3 variance be?
So for example, the property in Fishhawk Lake that I was talking about, if that had been denied or if it was approved and somebody had opposed it, they could appeal it. and then it would be up to the board. The board then would basically make a determination on, first of all, whether or not they want to accept the appeal. And then the scope of the appeal, you can review it just on the facts that are already in the record, or you can open it up and have a whole new hearing, or you can just review and accept new information on very specific items. So there's a lot of different options. And then the board would basically hear the case, make a decision just as the hearings officer did, and either uphold the hearings officer's decision, overturn it, or amend it. And then the board's decision can be appealed to the Land Use Board of Appeals, LUBA. And then from there, you would go up into the court system.
Okay. Well, I think we've been through, been through all of these, and I guess, is our staff clear on the amendments that we proposed?
20% across the board. Yeah. No, I think I've got everything captured, and making sure that we exclude the oceanfront properties from the height variance.
Okay.
Commissioners, if I could, this is David Cook, Planning Manager. Under the section on fences and walls, we had talked about a 20% increase to the fence and wall height through this administrative variance. There's also a section of or part of that section that talks about adding a 6-inch buffer for fence caps, gates, those sort of decorative things. Is that also meant to be included?
I would include that as well, I think.
I would leave what your recommendation is, the allow additional 6 inches, but instead of the 6-foot maximum, you can administratively review up to a 20% height variance. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I think that's what we'd talked about.
Thank you.
Yep, I would agree with that.
I think, looking back at all my notes, I think we are 20% across the board.
Chair, if you're ready, I'd be ready to recommend a motion.
I had a note back here real quick.
Or if there's anybody else wants to talk about anything else?
I just have a quick question for staff about this, the administrative variance process. If you have, let's say you have 2 items, maybe it's it doesn't matter, you can pick any 2 items. Let's say it's a fence height and maybe it's a setback. Is that 2 applications?
No, we would let somebody put those all on one application.
Okay, thank you.
But you could reject one.
Yes, and we could reject one and approve the other.
That's the way it is now, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I answered my own question. I think that does any other commissioners have any discussion on this, or are we ready for a motion? Okay, I think we're ready for a motion. We have on page 13 a recommended motion. I think it would be number 2, because we've already discussed all of our changes and made notes of them. Would somebody like to?
I'll make the motion that we recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve this item with the amendments that we have previously discussed.
I would like to second that motion.
I got to hold up for just a second. I think we followed this exactly to the point.
We need to have a public hearing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Open
So that was part of our discussion.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're gonna step back. That was part of our discussions with staff.
Way ahead of ourselves.
Okay. Sorry, we got a little carried away there. So we did staff report. I don't remember if I called for public testimony, so we're not. Okay, so at this time, this hearing is open for public testimony. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient specificity to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the board or to LUBA based on that issue. Are there any speakers that would like to discuss this? Seeing none. Are there any public agency comments?
No.
No. Are there any comments from the public? No. Public agencies are not here to respond. Does staff wish to respond to any of the questions, comments, concerns?
No, thank you.
All right. Are there any final questions of witnesses or staff? No. Public testimony is closed at 10:56. Discussion is open for the Planning Commission members. I think that we have already discussed this and good to go? Okay. Now I would like to request a motion.
I would move that we recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the item with amendments that were discussed earlier.
I
I
would,
have a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners, approve the item with amendments. Do I have a second?
I would like to second that motion.
Commissioner Satanovich seconds the motion. Are there any discussion and amendments?
No further discussion.
Okay. I have a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the items with amendments. We'd like to put this to a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
Commissioner Linder,
Aye.
Commissioner Satanovich,
Aye.
Vice Chair Johnson,
Aye.
Chair Crushhour.
Aye. I don't think I'm allowed to vote.
You are, I think.
Thank you.
Okay, and the motion passes unanimously. Have another statement to read. The county's ruling may be appealed by any person withstanding by filling a notice of intent to appeal with the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals, LUBA, within 21 days after the county has made its decision. If an appeal is not filed with LUBA within the 21-day period, the decision of the county shall be final. That's just closed.
Okay. Good catch, we were getting away. We were way.
Yeah, okay, so our next line item, moving on, is Committee for Citizen Involvement Recap. We have a staff report on this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is David Cook, the Planning Manager for the Community Development Department. So your commission may recall that at your January 14th hearing, we brought this item to you as a work session item to talk about the Planning Commission's role as the Committee for Citizen Involvement for Clatsop County. We had a discussion that talked a bit about where the commissioners thought people's priorities lay. There's a lot of talk about special district capacity, like water districts and fire districts, capacity to serve properties and to serve the people. And then there was also a discussion to make like a draft survey that could be distributed to members of the public to better gauge where their interests do truly lie. And I know that's been included in this agenda item on page 41 of your agenda packet. So really, we're just looking to sort of continue the discussion on this item. Staff has made a request that the Committee for Citizen Involvement consider options for better achieving our 3 objectives of Goal 1, public involvement. We're requesting some feedback on the draft survey that's included in the agenda item. And we are requesting a discussion on your committee's participation in any public outreach process. And then one thing I'll end with is Commissioner Carmichael did contact staff ahead of this meeting to submit a few comments that I'll read into the record on his behalf. Firstly, Commissioner Carmichael was supportive of the discussion of the requested items that I just described. And Commissioner Carmichael goes on to say that the 9 points in the draft community survey look acceptable, and that he is willing to facilitate promoting and making available a final survey and explain it to the members of the public in his district, in his immediate residential area, which is in the LC and Jewel area, and the local fire department and the school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any planning commission or members have any comment or questions or discussion with the planning department's goals or needs?
I think the survey is a good start, and be interesting to see the results of that. On the 3rd bullet point down, it says maintaining parks and recreation and current levels. That meant to be an at current levels, or instead of and current levels?
Yes.
Okay. Or would we want to change that to expanding parks, or, it's just, it says at current levels or expanding?
Yeah, so
How to word that. I mean, everybody would be in favor of expanding parks if we could, right? If we could afford it, if we had unlimited budget.
And that's the crux of the matter. So we are working right now with the Parks Division to put together a scope of work to update their 2006 master plan. As part of that discussion and drafting that scope of work, we're very keenly aware that because of developments with the Habitat Conservation Plan and other mandates and funding requirements that the county has, there's likely not additional general fund support that's available to expand parks, acquire new parks, add additional facilities and improvements. So that was the reason why we didn't want to give people encouragement that we're going to be expanding the park system, because that's really not in our budget at this point.
Maybe we just put maintaining parks and recreation. I don't know if you have to put anything at current levels. Maybe, I don't know how to word that. Anyways, it's a good draft, and I think
we go through this question by question. I agree. I had the question on that too, the maintaining parks and rec at current levels. I mean, I think just maintaining parks and recreation, parks and rec, leave that at current levels out, because some of them need upgrades. I mean, and we all know that. And if the goal is to keep them at the current level, then we're not going to improve them. But if we leave both of those out, it gives that maintaining them and then gives us the flexibility for improvement. I think we could all use a little improvement. What do you think of that?
Well, we're asking people to pick 3 of the most important development priorities. We're not really saying whether we rank those 3 in the question. Number 1, number 2, number 3 priority. I don't know if they're if there's even a way, it depends on how the survey is set up for someone to rank them.
Yeah, so we can change it to say rank it top 3.
Okay.
Do we want to leave that at current levels out and just say Parks and Recreation?
I say just take out the current levels, and if a lot of people pick it, you'll see that it's important, and then maybe
Yeah.
it's something they should consider to fund more.
Yeah.
Okay. Maintaining Parks and Recreation.
Range of housing options, all right.
I guess the point of this is just to get a feel for where,
Yeah.
as our Committee for Citizen Involvement, that we're trying to get a feel for where everybody's at, what their priorities are, and so if this helps accomplish that, it's just one thing that one part of how we figure this out. Anybody have any other things that should be added to the bullet points? I think you've done a pretty good job of trying to get the questions in there.
Question 2, what's the greatest challenge related to infrastructure and county services in Clatsop County? How much can we actually influence the school district facilities? We really can't.
Likely not at all.
I was thinking that doesn't even need to be in it, because that was my question. This is more of a municipality thing for each city. We're not gonna have anything to do with their infrastructures and stuff. I mean, obviously, if a bond goes through, that's a countywide tax, but that's totally separate than our concerns, I think, unless I'm out of line on that. But I didn't think that we could even influence that or make any changes to that. So I don't want to falsely lead that to the county that we can do this if this is one of their concerns. Does that make sense to you guys? I think that we should take that one out of there.
I
Does anybody
agree.
else have any?
I agree with that sentiment. Unless someone else could tell us otherwise, I don't see how school district facilities, like I said, unless someone can tell me otherwise, I don't see how that weighs into county outreach or county reach, I guess.
The other one that I had a question on here was special district capacity. So I asked a few people when I saw this, would special district capacity be a concern of yours in the county? And they go, what's a special district? And I can almost guarantee you that at least 50%, I would say a lot higher number of the people have no clue what that question even is. And if I'm taking a survey and you're going to ask me what the greatest, and if I don't know, it's not going to be, I don't know if there's a better way to maybe put a description in that so that the common person will understand what that means. Obviously, everybody who's involved in a special district knows what it means, but majority of people aren't. I think it's a good question, but I think that it needs a little bit of detail to it. And then, I know that's going to be a concern on everybody. Road maintenance, definitely. Planning and zoning. State and federal mandates was another one. I'm not sure, because we hear it all the time that it's state law and we can't do nothing about it. I'm not sure how much of a concern or a challenge. I mean, we know it's a challenge. Everybody knows it's a challenge. I don't know how it's going to help us move forward. What was the thought behind that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, sure, Chuck.
For our citizens of Clatsop County.
Yeah, so as you'd mentioned, there are a lot of state and some federal regulations that apply to us that sometimes, local planning gets bogged down by. So, there's not any one particular reason why it's included. It's something we deal with, and we're just kind of spitballing some ideas out here to generate a discussion.
I totally appreciate it, but
My thought is that it is a roadblock to some of the decisions the county is set in there so that resources are available to help fight legislation or something at the state level.
I think,
It is a challenge.
yeah,
I don't know how to word it properly, but it is a challenge that we face.
Would it make it clearer perhaps if we changed mandates to regulations?
Yeah, maybe, but I think part of this is, I mean, it is a challenge that if people, if they think it's a problem, it might be helpful that people are aware that that's the problem so they can learn to, number one, advocate for that not to happen, or like I think it might have been Commissioner Johnson, I couldn't quite hear, but or we dedicate funds to, to making sure that we have awareness at what's going on at the state level, that kind of thing, that things that impact the county. So I kind of feel like it needs to be there in some form, but how exactly, I'm not sure.
Does anybody have a recommendation of leaving it or just changing it, or?
I think if you can find language to improve on it, and I can leave that up to you.
Yeah.
Wordsmith that thing and, to get it sounding good.
Okay, thank you, yeah. And
Having the question in there, if someone's gonna check that box. Same thing with a special district capacity, you just gotta figure out what that means. I think it's just to clarify some of those things.
Descriptive.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, yeah. And just to throw it out there so that we understand, before this survey would be distributed to members of the public, we would work with our public affairs departments for the county who would help us reword questions, reformat it, make it look nice, make it make sense to, third grade reading level or something like that.
Yeah.
And if I'm correct, it would have to go to the Board of Commissioners to be approved to be sent out, or is that something that we would send out? If we approved it, then we could send it out, or could you guys just do it? I don't know how that, I know that distributing something countywide has probably got to be approved by somebody. I don't know.
So when we've done this in the past, we've usually done it in conjunction with, for example, when we were changing the ADU regulations, we did a survey, and we just did it, the department working with public affairs, to be able to do that.
Okay. Question 3, what should the top 3 priorities for community development in Clatsop County? Does any commissioners have anything to add or that they'd like to see on there or change on any of those? The questions that we have or the choices that we have are very good. I think I don't have an issue with any one of them being on there, but is there anything else that anybody would like to add to that?
Could we separate transportation and infrastructure since they're both such, they're pretty big deals in their own right?
We can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some of this, like economic development, it could be retaining existing businesses or promoting existing businesses and then trying to attract jobs. It's kind of along the same line, retain existing and attract new residents. I don't know if we need just to have some clarification on what economic development, supporting existing businesses or attracting new businesses or
I asked questions necessary, and how is it different than number 1? Feels like the same question, same answers.
kind of, yeah, so similar and has definitely some similarities in there. Going back.
We would have to have more than, if you're gonna rate your top 3, I think we should have more than like
There's one on
4
the
or
back.
5. I know, but if we're gonna set, we'd have to have more than 4 or 5 options, I think, I don't know. Or at least a space on every one of these. Some of them have a space where you can type in other. I think they should all have maybe of course, we're gonna get hundreds of different, if we get that many people to take the survey, different write-ins. But I'd read through them.
One thing, you have on the question 1 is to support and preserve agricultural lands and support, and preserve forest lands. There's not a bullet point on there to expand uses in agriculture and forest lands. It has been discussed that we're severely restricted in this area on what you can and can't do in ag and forest lands. It's things that prevents Clatsop County from expanding uses because we are surrounded by dedicated forest lands or ag lands. There's only so much we can do here, so that might be something to ask about that. And that requires, legislative work. We can't do anything about it as a county, but the legislature would have to take some action at some point and allow some different things to happen, which they have done. For example, they allowed the Seaside School District to build new schools in forest land, get out of the tsunami zone. So there are things like that that could occur to allow some development or growth to occur in forest lands, get us out of tsunami zones and do different things. But right now, without action by the legislature, we're stuck. Can't do anything about it. So that might be something that we could present in the survey in some fashion to address. We're kind of giving people one option on there: support and preserve ag lands, support and preserve forest lands, which I'm in favor of that to a degree, but I also think that we should have some flexibility where it makes sense. Right now, the top-down land use program in Oregon is very restrictive on what it allows local jurisdictions to do. And I also believe in local control. So I think that Clatsop County should have a say in what we do with our ag and forest lands.
Do you think it should be a separate question, like support growth in agricultural lands or forest lands, or?
I'm probably the wrong one to try to edit this or try to figure out the way to word these questions, but just it's a hard thing to do. Try to get these questions in how you want them worded, and there's no perfect way to do it. We're just trying to get a feel for where the county is at, and I think if we accomplish that goal, that's the main thing. And if we can just get some feedback, and just as a citizen or the Committee for Citizen Involvement, is trying to get people engaged and figure out where they're at, and I think we can accomplish that with this.
On line 2, or question 2, water and sewer capacity, can we put in there like sewer/septic? Just because a lot of people they might look at that and they go, I'm not on sewer, that doesn't pertain to me. I mean, I hear it all the time with septic system. I'm not on sewer, it doesn't matter to me. But it really does, because it's our waste and we have to figure out what to do with it. That's one of the biggest concerns I hear from people in the public over all the other major things. Is every time they get their septic tank pumped, they have to figure out where it's going, and it's costing way more. We could just add that in there. I think that would be easy, quick.
How would this survey go out? Would this be mailed out to someone that lives in the outside of city limits?
Sure. We have options, like Director Henriksen had mentioned before. We've put surveys just on the county's front page, and so when people visit the website, they can see it and participate if they so choose. So there's that option. There's an option where we, get special districts involved, like fire departments, and have them, mail them a series of copies that people can come by and pick up, and we have them, out for, a quarter or something like that, 3 months. We could mail them out to individual landowners. That one has a high cost, right? We could advertise it in the paper and have people go online that way and participate that way.
Is there any way to stop people from filling out 100 applications, the exact same, or surveys?
Probably, yeah.
I mean, so that we get an honest, close to honest opinion?
Probably. I mean, truthfully, the subject matter here is not exciting enough, probably, that people would waste their time trying to bib on a public survey. I guess it's possible, yeah, but we can talk with Public Affairs and see what their best judgment would be for digital things. For like a paper thing, if somebody mailed it in, I mean, there's no way.
And this would be just for county residents, not residents of people living in different cities?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we can go back to bullet points.
Question 4, what would you like to see more of in your rural community? These are good bullet points. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add?
Community spaces meaning parks? Or could mean?
Possibly, yeah.
Or
Community
community
spaces slash-
centers, gathering, just places where people can gather.
Yeah. Might expand on that a little bit or give a little definition on that one. Well,
The next one, what is your preferred type of house or housing type? Yeah, that's just asking people what they like to live in. What do you guys, that question, I don't know, I don't know what to fix or what to change or if anything, but it just kind of seems like something's missing in that question. I understand the question.
then it kind of follows that up with the number 6, is your preferred housing type affordable for you in Clatsop County? And that's kind of the first question in a series. Which housing issue will be the most pressing for Clatsop County to address in the next 10 years? Affordable, maintaining older housing, maintaining special districts. And you do give some definitions on special districts, water. Providing affordable, high-quality rental options, providing opportunities to age in place. I don't know if we get into taxes at all in this, which is a part of being able to age in place. If your property taxes are unaffordable, it affects affordability. Yeah, I don't know if we get into that at all with this. That to me is part of providing opportunity to age in place is the tax structure, especially when you get to be older. People living on fixed incomes, property taxes are a major factor of affecting their bottom line. That is, I don't know what county it does, has a taxation and assessment part of it, and the Board of Commissioners does have a say in some of that. I don't know how much we get into that side of things, maybe not at all with this particular survey.
Yeah, it's a dense topic for sure. That's much larger than just land use planning. From a planning, perspective, if somebody desires to age in place and their property taxes are increasing year over year, the opportunity to fix that might be through helping people understand if they can partition their property into multiple pieces of land that they could then sell to other people, reduces their total acreage, which can reduce their total taxable land, making people aware of farm and forest deferral with the county assessor for taxation, which can reduce their property taxes. These things don't always apply to every property or every situation, but there's things that I guess we can do as a department if this was really a big concern for people.
I think it's a pretty big concern. Taxes are always a pretty big concern for all of us, everybody.
I'd maybe let them select 2.
Okay.
Number 8, what would you improve about transportation in Clatsop County? I think that the first one is an amazing idea. I mean, I ride a bike, I ride a lot, but I don't think it's practical and I don't think it's cost effective for our county. Adding bike lanes, I don't even think it's feasible. I mean, we're not talking about the highway, we're not talking about in the cities, we're talking about county roads, Lewis and Clark, Youngs River, 202, not even 202, that's a highway. But I don't think that, I mean, it's probably a concern for people, but I don't even think it's something that we could even practically accommodate. Does that make sense? I mean, I don't know if even putting that question on there, even if 50% of our citizens want those, that would be a huge I think.
Well, you have the bike lane / infrastructure. I don't know if you have those, can have those together.
Everybody knows the roads, we obviously need to improve our roads. Everybody does. I mean, it's a concern with budgeting and the roads department and taxes and everything else.
Maybe this is a rank and order type question, rank your top 3, something like that.
Okay.
I don't know.
I think taking the bike lanes out of there is,
Well, they can rank, everybody could rank it number 1, and it still doesn't mean we can do anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, the data could be good just to demonstrate to the Board of Commissioners or Public Works that there's a large interest for bike lanes, and maybe it gets tabled for 10 years or 15 years or something, but, you know, anytime you can collect data, hopefully it can serve a purpose.
You could put walking paths in there too, I don't know, trails, that are part of parks. We have, there's a trail, Colby Lake has a trail in one of our parks. Lots of different things we could have in there.
I do think that, like Colby Lake, I ride there all the time. The new one they have out at the old Spruce Tree, those bike trails, I think those are huge. Areas to ride bikes are I mean, out Fort Clatsop and stuff like that. I think those are great. I just,
Maybe it would be bike lanes / bike trails.
Exactly, yeah, I mean, that's where my mind's going to. Maybe it's more of like biking area connectivity with a bike pathway.
yeah, and then put infrastructure. Are we talking about infrastructure, or are we talking about bike lane? I mean, how does that, because road repairs, all that stuff kind of is infrastructure. Yeah, if we could add that in there instead of like,
Public transit options, which is good to know. That's high priority for people. I know that ODOT has been focusing on crosswalks and ADA access up and down the Highway 101. If you've driven that recently on the coast, they've got new crosswalks and ADA access all over the place. Maybe crosswalks or ADA access could be part of that question if you're going to ask that question. Trying to figure out priorities, if that's part of it.
Where do you live? 2 questions on that. I don't see a option for where I live, and I live in the county. And are we going to include, we have to include theirs, they're in city limits, they can't take the survey, right?
I mean, we can't stop anyone from taking it, but we wouldn't make an effort to distribute it to them.
Gotcha.
So it could make sense to include the cities.
I live in the Clatsop Plains area. Well, that's not an option yet.
We'll make it one.
I live outside the city limits of Astoria, but I'm not in Napa or Swenson. So I'm still have an Astoria address. So does Napa and Swenson. They have an Astoria address, but they're not in the city limits of Astoria. So there's lots of different. Let's figure that part of out, where you live, maybe just.
Mm-hmm. And maybe like a map is good for that shows specific areas like John Day area or, you know, Lewis and Clark area.
A map actually might be, I don't know how interactive this will be, but, you know, if it was at least a digital version of it would be, but in some cases, like for instance, what Kerry was just referring to out in his area, maybe it would show, boy, I'm just a data nerd, so I guess I would look for it, but you know, like the special districts that are in your area, you know, if you're able to see that map and see what, when you look at where you live, you go, oh, look, there's this special district or that too, but I guess that just all depends on how much a person cares to look, you know, dig in.
I just want everybody to be included. Any other questions?
Going back to number 2, you have water and sewer capacity. has the same question. They're a little bit different in rural Clatsop County, whereas you have water capacity could be a special district where you don't have enough water available in a water district, but sewer capacity is whether or not you have a septic system. So they're kind of two different things. Maybe they should be separated out. I mean, those are just, they could be included, but you might want them separated out because they are two different issues. I'll leave that to you guys to figure out how to word it.
Thank you.
Well, that's kind of
Was that good feedback for you guys? And
It was.
something to move?
Yeah, that was great.
There was other
Thank
parts of that as well, wasn't there, that you were, or does that?
Yeah, and there's the survey is one component of this. The broader discussion is your committee's role in public participation. For example, on pages 30 and 31 of your agenda packet is the county's goal 1, which is public involvement. And there's, on page 30 there's a policy C that states the Committee for Citizen Involvement should hold at least one meeting per year in each planning area in order to inform the public of proposed changes in the comprehensive plan and some other things. So bringing that up to your committee to see what's your appetite for addressing that policy and how and when and who would participate specifically. And we don't have to solve it today, but
I mean, if we're expected to hold one public meeting, I mean, each of us represent a district, holding a meeting is not difficult. We could find a time that works for each one of us to hold a meeting. I know we can find a place in each district to hold a meeting. As long as we can come up with a series of topics for the meeting instead of just going in and saying, hey, does anybody have anything to say? You know, it's topics that, I mean, much like this survey, if we do the survey and then we find out what their most concerns are and we can address one or two of those top concerns at a meeting and see if anybody has any ideas, I don't think that's a terrible idea. It's part of our duty that we should be doing that and getting people involved. I mean, it's obviously we can't force anybody to get involved, and that's the hardest part because this is kind of boring and people don't want to, if it doesn't affect them or hinder something they want to do, they want to be left alone and they don't really care. But we can make the opportunity available for sure. I think that's something that, I mean, all of us are willing to do is do a meeting of some sort, or, I mean, even if 2 or 3 of us can go to each meeting and answer questions, or bring concerns back to our commission meetings.
I think that my concern is that if we hold a meeting in a planning district, we'll have even less people than we have when it's open to all the districts. So,
yeah,
finding a meeting, I mean, if there's an issue of concern in those planning districts, there's something that's coming up, or land use changes that are affecting one area, or if there's hearings that affect those areas, or maybe something comes out as a result of this survey that we can host some meetings around in the different planning districts. I appreciate that it, policy C says should instead of shall, so we can make that determination on when and how to hold those meetings. I mean, I think it's great if we could go out to the Napa-Swenson area and hold a big meeting and solve some problems out there, or wherever it may be. I think we're open to that, and we should do that. But if you hold one meeting per year in each of those areas, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get any attendance. So maybe we would. I mean, maybe if we proposed it, we would get a lot of people to show up if we went down to, say, Arch Cape or and did something down there. We have to have a specific purpose for it rather than just hold a meeting down there. But we have to decide what that purpose would be, if we're just trying to get feedback, or maybe that's to go down there and present this survey to the community and say, hey, fill this out, or give us any other item of concern, some items we may already know about. And it can open up it opens it up to everything if you do that, which is fine. That's what we're here for. But yeah, I think that my main point is that if we have an item of concern for one of these planning districts, we should go to that district. Be willing to have a meeting in that district. Go to wherever it needs to be, host a meeting there. We've done that before years ago, where we held meetings in different areas of concern, even at different high schools or whatever.
Okay. Well, so for the commissioners today, would you like to see staff come back at a future hearing with basically just like a template of how one of these meetings would be ran, advertised, topic areas, or maybe the topic areas are informed by the survey, potential locations, how locations would be chosen and when? I imagine most of the logistics of all that would fall on staff, and then you as a commissioner would just be required to participate.
That would be wonderful.
Okay.
Do we have any current concerns? Have anybody brought forth to your department major concerns that they haven't made present here, or complaints or anything that we should be looking at or addressing as a planning commission? Or
none that comes to mind. I mean, yeah, people have, minor issues with property every day, but not like a widespread issue that I can think of, unless Arch Cape has some issues.
That's the one that came to mind is vacation rentals, but the Board of Commissioners has already taken that up, so that's not really a planning commission. But we wouldn't want to wade into that as a planning commission when the Board of Commissioners is already making rulings on that, and that's part of what they're doing. So I wouldn't want to go to open that up.
No.
That's already beyond our scope, and we'd be out of our lane.
Okay. Well, staff can bring this to a March hearing. We'll make a little 2 or 3 page fact sheet of how one of these meetings might be run, and you as a commissioner's responsibilities for participating in that.
Perfect. I'm assuming we'd probably wait to do those meetings until after said survey is sent out and done, and
yeah. Would we do it, or could we do it as a regular commission meeting? Like, say, we're just going to host in order to get out to another part of the county, we're going to have a planning commission meeting in Seaside, or just to help spread it out around the county. I mean, we don't have an item of specific concern for a planning area. I don't know why we'd necessarily host a meeting have a meeting there. When we have a regular meeting that anyone can come to with any item of concern at any time, and we're already not getting a lot of public participation. The goal would be to get more public participation, but expanding that into another smaller area just by itself doesn't get us there.
just be a less formal, more of just town hall, or, something not so intimidating.
I think that's probably part of the
Correct, yeah.
part
and
of it is
changes-
less intimidation, in the sense of coming to, the Boynton building, or, having almost an open house. I know that doesn't sound quite right, but an open house type thing of more educational, like, hey, what does your planning commission do for you? And maybe even get more participation as far as volunteers that might want to participate in the commission down the road. But, so maybe it's not necessarily that we're having an issue in an area, but maybe that we're going there so that people, welcoming people to come in and chat about things in more of a roundtable kind of situation. And maybe it's only one person or 2, but maybe they'll get involved.
Maybe we do this in conjunction with the survey. Hey, we're coming to your district, and we're bringing this survey with us. fill it out.
Right.
I think I'd just like to hear his recommendation at the next meeting of what the expectations and the plan would look like.
Thank you.
Did you have anything else on this?
That's all for me. I have direction, so we'll come back in March and give you some ideas and can deliberate further then.
Perfect. So,
Was this a public hearing that we have to,
no, it got changed. It's up
okay, got it. Oh, it's on the agenda,
here.
got it.
Didn't get the new agenda.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna move on to, work session item number 4, commercial and industrial zoning audit.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I am Zane Longwell. I'm a planner with Clatsop County. So I'm introducing the commercial and industrial zoning audit to you all and inviting the Planning Commission to be a part of this process. So the audit would identify areas within the law duct where regulations and review processes could reduce cost and time and provide predictability. So in total, 10 zones will be audited, and all of those are listed within the agenda packet. So Rebecca, could you please go to page 45 of the agenda packet? So one way staff are looking to reduce cost and time is to identify uses within these zones that are type 2 uses currently and or type 2 procedures and reduce them down to a type 1 procedure. So I put together this table here, and in the table we looked at a few different commercial and industrial uses, and within the county currently all of them require a type 2 procedure, generally speaking. And when you compare this to 3 different neighboring counties, for all the 5 commercial uses that I listed, they all require a type 1 procedure. And then moving on to the industrial uses that are listed, outside of heavy industrial uses and Lane County being an exception here, it's a type 1 procedure in the comparison counties. And here, it's all, type 2 or greater. And Rebecca, can you please go to Law Duct Article 4, page 33? Thank you. So this is the rural community commercial zone. This is a list of, there's actually, I think, 21 type 2 conditional uses within this zone. And you can see how lengthy these descriptions are. If we look at the second use there, a retail drug variety gift, antique, hardware, sporting goods, dry goods, music, florist, book, stationery, art gallery, or a similar store, that can all be reduced in 2 words, retail sales. So that's what we're looking to do, is to reduce this lengthy, dated language into more concise, modern terms. And then those definitions would be reflected in Article 1 of the Law Duct. In addition to the dated, lengthy language we have here, we have inconsistent language and definitions for some uses, like the farm or garden supply equipment sales and repair. That's worded slightly. Sometimes it groups in like forest, equipment and sales repair. It's very inconsistent across these 10 different zones. So these are the things that we're looking at throughout the audit. So this is where I'm inviting the Planning Commission to come in is staff, we are requesting that you provide input on how to improve these 10 commercial and industrial zones. Specifically, we would like you all to recommend uses for a more streamlined administrative process, recommend new uses that are not currently permitted. One that comes to my mind is indoor agriculture, and also identify opportunities to consolidate and simplify language. So I'm going to kind of leave this up for discussion, but prior to that, I'm going to just kind of take a step back and give kind of the broad overview of what this process could look like. So we're inviting this for discussion here today, and then staff are going to review these 10 zones and kind of go through and make our recommendations. Then that will come back to you all to review in the future. But prior to us, staff going through and doing this audit, we kind of wanted to get some preliminary thoughts on this. So yeah, what thoughts and questions do you have?
I had a question. Can you tell us about what the difference would mean between a type 2 and a type 1? You probably say it in here somewhere, or I know it's just a simpler process, but what does that mean going from a type 2 to a type 1 in a commercial zone?
Yeah, so a type 1 procedure is a much shorter, just speaking in terms of time, a type 1 procedure takes, I would say a few days, potentially, 1 day in some instances. For a commercial industrial uses, it would probably take us a few days because there's a lot to look at, a lot of different criteria. And it's a development permit, so it's a much shorter, list of stuff that an applicant would have to meet. With a type 2 procedure, there's a public notice that's required. So that's one thing that automatically adds time to the entire process. Prior to that, you have a completeness review, and you're going to go through and make sure that it meets a bunch of criteria listed in Article 2 of the Law Duct. So there's a big long list that all conditional uses must meet. And then after that, then staff we write up a lengthy report. It's 20 pages, probably between 15 to 20 pages without all the different appendixes. So that was a long answer, but that's going to take much longer than the 1 to 5 days for a type 1 procedure.
I would also add that it's an $85 development permit versus a $1,200 or a $1,500 conditional use permit.
Okay. And with these regulations, are you going to take a crack at trying to clean all this up and shorten this up, or combine some of these conditional uses into more modern, more applicable language, or simpler, like you were saying earlier, they could all be combined into just retail space?
Yeah,
something
yeah.
Similar to that.
Yeah, I think it would, that is for sure one of our goals. And, if you all see some examples of this and ideas of how we can combine and simplify things that, residents, living in the county can easily understand. And, we're more than open to that.
Well, I think on our, I would like, on the table that you have on page 45, I'd like to see Clatsop County get more in line. Other counties out there that change some of these type 2 permits into type 1 permits. I think that's kind of where we're headed with this. With all the things in the commercial zone, and then even in the light industrial and the wholesale distribution, I think that we could those things as well. Just my immediate thoughts. I think it's a good thing that we're going through this audit on this, and just try to simplify as much of this as we can.
What I'd like to see in this is, you guys have obviously jumped into this, and I would like you guys to go through this and kind of put forth your thoughts as to what you're planning on changing, instead of having us do all of what we want to change, and then we can review it, come up with our thoughts and discussions. I mean, you guys obviously have this in your head. You look at it all the time. You're on it. You know this front and back, and I would like to see your clerical fixes and your recommendations before we open this up to a massive discussion, because it's going to be, we can pick apart everything, and we're going to be here for several hours picking apart everything to try and fix it. I'd like to see some staff do that and bring to us, and historically, since I've been here, that's usually how we do this, is you guys bring us an amended recommendation and present it to us, and we have a chance to look at it and see the difference between what it was and what you're recommending, and then add our thoughts, concerns, corrections, whatever it is, and keep the ball rolling forward that way. Commissioners, do you agree with that we would like to see staff's recommendations on all these changes? And of course, we can, if you guys want to go through this whole thing, you can email our thoughts in and concerns and changes as well. But I would like to see what staff is recommending before we dive into this too deep.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement.
Historically, this is how we've done. I mean, like I said, since I've been here, this is usually how we do it. It gives us a good base to start looking at things. You guys obviously have a better understanding of the actual law and what has to be written in there, and cross-referencing everything, and then we just nitpick it to death. I agree with the concept of this. These should be at a 1, 100%. Now, how you go and clean up all the language and all of that, that's, as long as we're being more clear and concise and cleaning up all that language, I agree with too, or as well.
You're really just looking to simplify the process. You're not changing zoning, you're just, how do you?
Yeah, this wouldn't be changing zoning in any way. It's more streamlined, better definitions, concise, consistent, and then also reducing cost and time.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of making things simpler and going reasonable to go to, type 1 and not create extra work for you and less cost for the developers, and just
It
understanding
follows
what that
right in
change
line
is, yeah.
of what we just did earlier in the ordinance, and what the planning commissions, or the planning departments, county commissioners have set forth, and everything that we're doing is cleaning these up. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. So is it acceptable to ask by our March meeting, or do you need till April to do these changes that you guys recommend and put everything together? Do you need a month, 2 months?
Chair, we'll have to see what the schedule looks like as far as workload goes, but my initial thought would be bringing a draft ordinance for discussion, not recommendation, in April. But yeah, we can let you know. We'll put it on the next month's workload, not the workload, what is it, the project status report. Thank you.
Okay.
I think that'd be a good idea. Let's look at some proposed changes from staff and go from there. And this is your chance to do as much cleaning up as you possibly can. And we'll lean on you guys to do whatever changes, or to give yourself as much flexibility as you can. Get the changes in there that you want to see. Provide some examples of some things that may need to be in there that are new uses that are currently not permitted that maybe should be included in there. And then we'll look at it again. And taking it one step further, what's the next one after this? Do we have another portion of the code that we need to take up after?
Communication towers.
Okay. Yeah.
And signage, actually, too.
Yeah. So these are the kind of things that we want to see coming at us. That if we need to address some of the rules and regulations around communication towers or signage, get them on the list and get them in the process. And yeah, just prioritize the ones that have the greatest need first.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Can you, Rebecca, can you pull up the corrected agenda? I don't have it in front of me. All right, work session number 5, fiscal year 26-27 work plan.
Yeah, so segueing from Commissioner Johnson's last comment, we have a work plan, and we put these things on there every year, and some years were more successful than others. But we brought this to your commission last month, got some feedback from you about some items that should be included in the work plan, specifically related to your role as the Committee for Citizen Involvement. So we added those in. I just brought it back one more time because we'll be turning this in at the end of February with our budget requests. And so if there were any additional items that you wanted to see on here, we have the signs and the communication towers on this year's work plan, and we thought we may be able to finish them before the end of the fiscal year. That's why they're not reflected on the 26-27 work plan.
So the audit will then be added?
Yeah, well, we may even get that done this year too. So.
All right. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to see added or discussion or anything? You guys have a handle on what your capacity is and what you've presented.
Yeah.
Us changing it's not going to help that at all.
No, but if there are things that we may need to reprioritize or maybe at least start thinking about, it's always important to put those on there. The other reason we do this is we tie it into the board's strategic plan so that we're working together with the board towards the same common goals, but also to kind of get an idea of the staffing levels that we should be looking at. And as you can see, we more or less track pretty close to what our staffing needs are. So we put more work on our agenda than we actually have staff right now, but we get, I think, quite a bit accomplished. So.
Do we need to, and I didn't read the whole thing, I apologize, but do we need to put in the survey community outlook, or is that already in there?
I think I added that along with a brochure that you had discussed about the role of the Planning Commission, and then the survey is in there.
Okay.
That was added.
Anybody else have anything? All right, moving on. Project status report, February 2026.
All right, thank you, Chair. One big thing on your project status report is Ordinance 2508 was adopted by the Board of Commissioners back in January, at the end of January. So that was our updates to Comprehensive Plan Goals 16 and 17. And with their adoption, that finalizes the end of the comprehensive plan update that started back in 2019. So it was a bit of a windy road, get to the final end, but we got there and it was approved, and seems like everyone's happy with it so far. Another big thing was the legislative amendments that your commission heard on December 9th. This is kind of like our annual update to the our land use ordinance to incorporate legislative changes from the 2025 legislative session. That was also approved by the board at the end of January. Other than that, there's not too much else. We have communication facilities and sign regulations updates on there. No real movement on those as of yet to discuss. And you just heard administrative variances earlier today. And that's all I have on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Director's report.
So let's see here. So I know we have no new updates on FEMA. Nobody in the state has an update on FEMA. I'm on several listservs and nobody's got any updates about what's happening with that. We continue to move forward on the Fairgrounds strategic plan. The Fair Board identified the fair jurisdictions they want us to survey and some competing venues, things like the loft at the Red Building and the ruins and a couple of other places. So David and I will be starting the work to contact those organizations and venues, and we've got a list of survey questions we're going to be asking them. We have also been working with the Public Affairs Office and to put together a public outreach plan for the Fair Plan update. So you'll be seeing probably in March and April an online survey and some public notices for the first round of open houses that we'll be doing. The Housing Assistance Grant, we just got a revised scope of work, and so we're just about ready to kick that off and have the consultant set him loose on there. Again, just a reminder that we have 3 terms that are coming up for renewal at the end of June. If you are interested in being reappointed, you do need to submit an application for that. And that public notice for recruitment is probably going to go out at the beginning of March so that we have plenty of time for people to respond. The board approved your bylaw amendments, and I thought I had included a copy, but I see that I didn't, so I'll make sure to email that out to you all. Task force moves on, and we've talked about other things, blah, blah. So diking districts, this is a new thing. The county manager's office has been working with community development and assessment and taxation and public works. And what we are doing is working to design a project for our summer class of works intern. And what they would be doing is working with the diking districts, and probably, I think it's Diking District 11 in particular, to make sure that the diking district has the most up-to-date information in terms of any land partitions that have occurred or any new structures that have been built. Because many of these, and Commissioner Linder will know because I believe he is the head of one of the diking districts, but diking districts sometimes set their rates based on per structure fees or per acreage fees, things like that. And when the diking districts don't have the correct number of houses or parcels that are in their area, they are basically leaving money on the table. And so we are going to be working with the different departments in the diking districts to see if we can put a process in place that will get them these annual updates. And so just give you that. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Is there any good of the order? All right, hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. All right.